Unlock the hidden truth about cruise gratuities. It's not what you think. On my last cruise, I did something that surprises a lot of people. I removed the automatic gratuities from my onboard account. Now, before anyone panics in the comments, this isn't about refusing to tip crew members. In fact, I still tip. But I started questioning something that more and more cruisers are noticing in 2026. The cruise gratuity system has become confusing. Every day there's an automatic charge added to your account. Then you tip bartenders, then there are service charges in restaurants, then spa gratuities, then extra tips on receipts. By the end of the cruise, many passengers realize they've tipped hundreds of dollars without really understanding where the money went. So on my last trip, I decided to try something different. I removed the automatic gratuities and handled tipping myself. And what I discovered raised some interesting questions about how cruise tipping actually works today. In this video, I'm going to explain why I did it, what happened when I did, what cruise lines don't always explain about gratuities, and whether removing automatic tips is actually fair to the crew. Because this topic sparks a lot of debate among cruisers. Some people say automatic gratuities are essential. Others believe the system needs to change. But once you understand how cruise tipping works in 2026, you may start looking at those daily charges a little differently. If you've taken a cruise in the last few years, you've probably seen the automatic gratuity charge. Every day of your cruise, a set amount is added to your onboard account. In 2026, that amount is usually somewhere between $16 and $20 per person per day, depending on the cruise line and the type of cabin you booked. For a couple on a 7-day cruise, that can easily add up to over $250 in gratuities by the end of the trip. Most cruise lines explain that this money is distributed among the crew members who serve you throughout the week, your cabin steward, dining room staff, kitchen staff behind the scenes, other service crew. The idea is that instead of passengers handing out cash tips individually, the cruise line collects the gratuities automatically and distributes them across the service teams. In theory, it simplifies the process. Passengers don't have to worry about who to tip or how much. But here's where some confusion starts, because automatic gratuities don't actually cover every tip on board. Many passengers assume they do. But in reality, you'll still see gratuities added in other places. Bar drinks usually include an 18 to 20% service charge. Spa services add another automatic gratuity. Specialty dining restaurants often include service fees. So even if you pay the daily gratuities, you're still tipping in several other ways during the cruise. And that's when some passengers start wondering exactly how the system works. Which is the question that led me to try something different on my last cruise. They showed up on the account each day, and I just accepted them as part of the cost of cruising. But on one of my recent trips, I started paying closer attention to the onboard charges. And that's when I noticed something interesting. The daily gratuities were being added automatically, but I was also seeing extra service charges almost everywhere else. Every drink at the bar had an 18% gratuity already included. Specialty dining added its own service charge. The spa added another automatic gratuity on top of the treatment price. By the time the cruise was halfway over, it felt like tipping was happening in multiple layers. Again, I have no problem tipping crew members. They work incredibly hard and absolutely deserve fair compensation. But the system itself started to feel unclear. Where exactly was the daily gratuity going? How much of it actually reached the crew members I interacted with the most? And why was I still seeing so many additional service charges even after paying automatic gratuities? Those questions are what made me curious enough to try something different. So on my next cruise, I decided to see what would happen if I handled tipping myself. And that meant removing the automatic gratuities from my account. On most major cruise lines, automatic gratuities are not technically mandatory. They are automatically added to your account, but passengers usually have the option to adjust or remove them by visiting guest services. Now, cruise lines obviously don't advertise this very loudly. The system is designed so that most passengers simply leave the gratuities in place. But if you go to the guest services desk and request it, the staff can remove the automatic charges from your account. That's exactly what I did. On the second day of the cruise, I went down to guest services and asked if it was possible to remove the automatic gratuities. The crew member at the desk didn't argue or question it. They simply asked if I was sure, confirmed the request, and removed the daily gratuity charge from the account. The whole process took less than 2 minutes. But that's when the experiment really started. because removing the automatic gratuities meant I now had to decide how to tip the crew myself. Removing the automatic gratuities didn't mean I stopped tipping. It just meant I handled it differently. Instead of the cruise line distributing the tips automatically, I chose to tip the crew members directly. Throughout the cruise, there were a few people I interacted with the most: my cabin steward, a couple of servers in the dining room, and a bartender I saw almost every evening. At the end of the trip, I gave cash tips directly to those crew members. Not dramatically different from the total gratuities I would have paid automatically, but the money went directly to the people who had actually taken care of me during the cruise. And honestly, those interactions felt more personal. When I handed my cabin steward a tip at the end of the week, we had a conversation about the cruise, the itinerary, and how busy the ship had been. It reminded me a bit of how cruise tipping used to work years ago, when passengers typically tipped individual crew members in person. Now, that doesn't mean the automatic system is bad. In fact, it helps ensure that many behind-the-scenes crew members, like kitchen staff, also receive part of the gratuities. But handling tips directly made me realize how little most passengers understand about where those daily gratuities actually go. And that's where the debate around cruise tipping really starts. Some cruisers strongly believe the automatic gratuity system should never be removed. Their argument is simple: the crew works incredibly hard, and the automatic system guarantees they receive consistent compensation. Others feel the system has become too complicated. They see daily gratuities, bar service charges, restaurant fees, and spa tips all stacking on top of each other, and it starts to feel less like tipping and more like another set of mandatory charges. In many ways, the cruise industry created this debate itself. Years ago, tipping was handled almost entirely in cash. Passengers would give envelopes to their cabin steward and dining room staff at the end of the cruise. Then cruise lines switched to the automatic system to make the process easier and to ensure that gratuities were distributed across larger teams behind the scenes. That change helped standardize crew compensation, but it also made the process feel less transparent to some passengers. When people don't understand where their money is going, they start asking questions. And that's why you see such strong opinions on both sides of this topic. Some cruisers will never remove the automatic gratuities. Others prefer to handle tipping themselves. Both perspectives come from the same place, wanting to make sure the crew is treated fairly. Cruise crew members rely heavily on tips as part of their income. Many of the staff working on ships come from countries around the world and spend months away from home working long contracts at sea. The gratuity system, whether automatic or direct, is designed to make sure those crew members are compensated for the service they provide. That's why this topic can become emotional for some people. When passengers talk about removing automatic gratuities, others worry that the crew might end up receiving less. That's a fair concern. If someone removes the automatic gratuities and doesn't tip at all, the crew members who helped them during the cruise could lose income they normally depend on. That's why many experienced cruisers say the real issue isn't whether gratuities are automatic or manual. The important thing is that crew members are still tipped fairly for their work, whether the money goes through the cruise line system or directly from passenger to crew member. The goal should be the same: making sure the people who take care of you during the cruise are appreciated. And that's the perspective I kept in mind when I decided to try removing the automatic gratuities. Would I remove the automatic gratuities again? Honestly, it depends. The automatic system definitely has advantages. It's simple. It ensures many crew members receive tips, including people working behind the scenes. And it removes the pressure of deciding how much to tip each person individually. For many passengers, leaving the automatic gratuities in place is probably the easiest and fairest option. But handling tipping directly also showed me something interesting. It created more personal interactions with the crew members who helped me the most. Instead of tips being an invisible daily charge, it became a direct way of saying thank you to the people I actually saw every day. So I don't necessarily think there's only one correct way to handle cruise gratuities. What matters most is that the crew members are still treated fairly. Whether you leave the automatic gratuities in place or choose to tip directly, the important thing is remembering how much work the crew puts into making the cruise experience possible. Because at the end of the day, the service you receive on a cruise ship is one of the things that makes the entire vacation special. Cruise tipping in 2026 is definitely more complicated than it used to be. Automatic charges, service fees, drink gratuities, it's easy to lose track of where everything goes. But once you understand how the system works, you can decide what feels right for your own cruise. Some passengers will stick with the automatic gratuities, others will choose to handle tips themselves. Either way, the goal should always be the same: recognizing the crew members who work incredibly hard to make the cruise memorable. And if you've ever wondered how cruise gratuities actually work behind the scenes, that might be a topic worth diving into next, because the system is more complicated than most passengers realize. So yeah, subscribe for more info about travel cruises.